Welcome back to Freedom to Learn podcast. My name is Gurumurthy Yeleswarapu, founder and CEO of Siliconvalley4u. For those who are new to this podcast, please subscribe and press on the like button. You get a bunch of episodes your way, and also you can dig into our archive to check out a lot of podcasts. Today, we have very close friend of us for 20, 30 years, 25 years. Anyway, I lost track of it. And she's currently VP of Product Management at Salesforce, Padmashree Koneti. So she's going to share her journey and journey of her kids and also things that are happening in the industry today. So welcome, Padmashree.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be here and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So for starters, why don't you tell about yourself? So, how you started and then what brought you to America and then fast forward where you are today.
Yeah. I'll do that. So I think not too dissimilar backgrounds from you, Guru. I grew up in a small, conservative, middle-class South Indian family. I grew up in Bangalore. I was born in Tamil Nadu, grew up in Bangalore for pretty much my early part of my life. Simple upbringing. Education was the most important thing at home. Didn't have a lot to go around in terms of toys or fun trips or things like that, but books and science and doing well in school was always a priority. My dad worked as an engineer, but most of his spare time was spent either tutoring us and helping us or helping other kids and family members, or eventually he actually moved into tutoring as well as a full-time profession because he loved teaching so much. Lots of, sort of conservative expectations on what's expected and, how to grow up as a girl, as a woman as well. As I was in high school and such, I really still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do with my life. And there was a lot of, I could go be this, I could go be that. And I mean, again, those conservative expectations kind of played out. At one point, I said I wanted to be a flight attendant. And my dad said, "What? Absolutely not. You will not serve drinks to random people." And then I said, "I think I want to be a doctor." And he said, "No, you will not touch cadavers." Then I said, "Well, how about an architect? I mean, that's coming close to, you're an engineer." Lots of engineers in the family. My great-grandfather, I actually have his engineering drawing up here on my wall. He was one of the first civil engineers to graduate out of independent India back in 1945, 1947. I said, "What about an architect? Maybe I'll become an architect." And he was like, "Nope, the pencils are too expensive and it's 5-year school. It's not 4-year school. So it's out of the question." So finally, I didn't know what to do. And I didn't want to go into engineering just because everybody was sort of generally pointing in that direction. But then eventually my dad said, "You know what? You're good at math. You're good at science. Just go become an engineer. You can figure out what to do with your life later." So, again, fell into engineering school. And as you know, India produces a phenomenal number of engineers every year. It's a fantastic thing that we have as a foundation. However, at the time, the best way that was getting capitalized was just the beginning of that software industry boom, 100% outsourcing, large multinational American, European companies wanting to set shop up in India. And so right out of school, I got selected out of a campus interview to go work at Siemens. Again, money that my family had never seen. After 20 years of service, I was going to make as a monthly salary at that point. Didn't really know much about coding, didn't really have a whole lot of passion about coding either. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not hyping it up as much as I should, but just fell into it and, started to write code. So I was at Siemens Communication Software, really started enjoying it, problem solving with code, trying to get codes to respond to you for complex situations that you wouldn't have to keep in your brain, was a lot of fun. I think one of the first projects for which I stayed up all night and tried to figure out was a lift problem, an elevator problem. There, bank of elevators, you know the drill. It was fascinating, and it just finally clicked for me that there was something I was interested in. I worked there for a couple of years. I think in terms of my motivation to come to the US, I mean, at the time I used to watch a lot of Star Television because there were some interesting shows and all that, but never really fashioned seeing myself in the US. I was quite happy there. Honestly, the thing that brought me here was arranged marriage. Again, for young engineers at the time, the US and Europe and Canada posed a lot of attraction, and arranged marriage brought me here. So I was neutral when I first came here, but definitely fell in love with what has become my home. I was in California for 17 years, and now the last 5 years, 8, 9 years here in Portland. Definitely sort of came to like the simplicity of life and the opportunities that became available. So I continued my career in engineering as a software engineer, became an engineering manager at Sun Microsystems, one of the best companies I've ever worked at. I was sort of growing in my career, but there was starting to be a gap. I kept seeming to ask the question, well, why are we building this software? Well, who is this for? How will they use it? What happens if they get, those features instead of these features? What happens if I kill that project and continue this one? Who is making these decisions? And at the time at engineering, as you know, this was when Java was at its peak, and Sun was coming up with its whole enterprise business outside of Solaris. And my manager at the time said, there's a name for people like you. You're a product manager. It's those people who actually have to answer the question about what to build and when to build it and why to build it, not so much how to build it. So then I got fascinated with that discipline. And you can't really go to product management school. I think now there might be some PM schools and camps that you can go to, but it's a discipline that's really burgeoned up from engineering, from marketing, from a variety of different places. And so I didn't really get to go to school, but I went to school for an MBA though. And that in between two kids with a full-time job, do not recommend it. Happy to talk to anybody who wants to do it. I think we got to know each other around the same time. That was a rough go. But I was grateful because what it did was it gave me a real appreciation of what it takes to run a whole business, not just, my slice of it, which I understood well, which was building solutions to technology problems. It helped a lot. It just helped a lot to really understand who are, salespeople, what do they do? Why is marketing important? How do you bring the whole business together? Accounting, regulations, finance, all of those pieces. So that was good. And then essentially, I think leaving Sun, I made a transition into product management. With an exception of a couple of roles I've played recently, I've really not looked back. I grew in management as well, in addition to, for better or for worse, I've had a chance to do product management at a lot of different companies, small and large, enterprise software, B2B versus consumer, application software versus infrastructure software. I had a chance to do a lot of different things, and I've learned a ton in that process. And also, had a chance to grow in leadership, growing a team, becoming a senior leader inside a company. It's not been without its scars. It's definitely, in terms of learnings and what to do, what not to do, learned a lot, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So see, just to summarize everything you said, right, a couple of things that comes to my mind. One is the discovery process of what works for me. These systems don't give an opportunity. For instance, I can speak for myself. I did computer science. So what does that mean? So basically, colleges are telling the world that this guy can do only testing and development, end of story. Don't talk to him otherwise. Same thing. Companies, when I apply, they don't even entertain the conversation. Let's say if I say, I want to be a product manager, forget about it. They don't. They expect me to go and do MBA. So that's what you did.
Right.
And then, so if I do MBA, then I'm qualified for product management. But fast forward, with all due respect, there are a lot of MBAs are coding, a lot of people like me doing some kind of product management or being on business side of
running
things.
Business. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I guess everything you said, even early on with conversations with your dad. So the stereotype back then was, if you do well in school, you're going to do well.
Life will be good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not only that will be good, in the implicitly that states that you're going to do very well in life.
Success. Mm-hmm.
Success, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can speak again, like you get into that tunnel blindly and going every year, every semester, keep going, and 20 years it's still going. So so yeah, I'm 21 and I'm still going. That guy says, you have next semester, you got to finish this project. So I finished the project. I remember I going to the campus interview. Back then, there was only one time campus interview on colleges that happened to be my college, my year.
Oh, wow.
Luckily.
Nice.
So it seems there was nothing after that for a few years. Now there are quite a few, but before that, there was nothing. So I went to the campus interview. I was told that I'm on the shortlisted people to get the job. And the guy asked, what do you want to do? So I didn't know. I don't know what you. So I didn't want to say it. I don't know what you do, because back then there are no website. There is nothing. You don't know. I really don't know what they do. But I didn't want to say, and so I said, I'll do whatever you want. That he didn't like it. He wanted to be. He wanted me to be very specific.
Purposeful.
So then I said, I can do this software, this, that. I kind of gave a very vague answer so that it covers everything he might have. I don't want to lose a job. If I say something and if he doesn't get a job, I lose it.
Yeah.
So on the way back, first time that hit me that, man, I spent 20 years. I don't know. Simple question. What do you want to do? I don't have clarity. And where is this going, and how am I going to get an answer for that? And I never got an answer for that for many years. And so they sent me to US, and then I work here. This. So these companies decided my career. They told me that you had to work on mainframes, so now you are working on networking, yada. And then I ended up in Broadcom. How I ended up in Broadcom? Because they asked me to join. It's not that something I wanted to do, or this is my plan. This is what I want to be in 3 years down the road. Nothing like that. So I took some of the jobs because I was an H-1B. So, but long story short, if you take the same thing today, unfortunately, nothing much has changed. I talked to a lot of people from colleges. I'm not saying that, back then we didn't have computers. Now they have computers. That's the massive difference. And, everybody has a laptop, phone, everything, but back then we didn't have, right? And so when I talk to the people that are coming out of colleges, I ask very question, what do you want to do? Trust me, not many people don't know the answer yet. And I interviewed a guy from Purdue on the other day. Never heard unstructured data, the word. So the phrase is completing his or he completed actually. Other guy from what is this? UC something Riverside. I asked him, I don't want to know what you know. Just summarize everything that has been taught.
Okay.
I don't want to know whether you know this or you don't. He couldn't summarize. He was listing all the courses of all semesters. So I guess the point is that, where I'm leading this whole thing is to ask you a question of, there is a difference in the real world that you have your experiencing as we speak. And then you also did a bunch of degrees, including MBA. There is a gap. So can you talk about that gap? And if you see any way to mitigate that?
That's a great question. And of course, there is a little bit of transitiveness in terms of what I saw in India versus with education as opposed to what I've seen in the US with careers. So I'm going to answer more of the US question. Yeah. I won't go back to the India piece. I think India is still a little bit behind on that front from an education perspective.
Yeah.
I do agree with you that as technology has sped up at such a phenomenal rate, the education system hasn't kept up with that. right? Okay, great. They have labs in elementary school, but they're learning how to type and they're learning basic things. They're not actually learning as core curriculum, computer skills, right? I mean, in most public schools. I'm not talking about the unique schools where motivated parents and motivated children are going to go after. And I'm speaking from one of the schools that's probably only one step ahead of or one step behind California in the education system. It's at the very rock bottom of the 50 states. Oregon doesn't have a great school system. We're only about graduating about 2/3 of who gets into high school. Our graduation post high school education rates are very low. It's a fact. That's a reality, but I'm just telling you what I know based on my children's public school education. Absolutely, the schools have not kept up. The school system has not kept up. The rigmarole and what should we teach and how much of an overhead it is and how hard it is to teach. And of course, there's all these other issues about critical race theory and other things that come into play, which just make the whole system. I don't honestly feel that the way America was touted out to be the land of opportunity, it really is anymore. I do feel that education has to, there are of course pockets, right? There are pockets where there are fantastic teachers who are super motivated. Hari, my son, has some really great teachers who go above and beyond to get the kids motivated and excited about mechanics or about, statistics or any pick your subject, right? And I think the creme de la creme kids might be able to tell you with a little bit more critical thinking what they've actually learned, not just what they studied. But that's not the norm. It really, unfortunately, is not the norm. I mean, I do hear about schools that are, in inner city Chicago, where schools are experimenting with yoga, as an example. That would be an incredible way to, teach children, self-control, meditation, way to channel their energy, use their physical bodies, channel their minds. But again, it's pockets. Why aren't we picking this up fast enough? Why are we busy debating what we should and shouldn't do?
Yeah.
How do we give children more of a holistic education to help them truly decide what they want to do? I mean, in spite of all of that, we're two well-educated people, my husband and I, and my son is a pretty bright kid. I would say he's pretty up there in terms of, he's blessed, right? Yeah. But in spite of all that, it's not like he exactly knows what he's going to do with his life.
Yeah.
What about the average Joe? What about the average kid out there? I do think there's a big gap. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, how to
I think, No, you are answering the question, no doubt about it. Here is the thing, right? The way I look at it is, it's a different perspective of the whole system is, it's not about the people, it's about the system I'm talking about. For instance, so if you take computer science or non-computer science, in both the cases, there are two parts, right? There is all the concepts. Like you said, Hari went to a school that had good teachers. I'm pretty sure they're teaching, the foundation formulas or whatever it is. And however, there is the application side of things, which none of the teachers have ever experienced in their lives. And whether it's anything, computer science is absolutely not, right? In other words, even if you take best of the best schools, even if you take the best of the best schools and let's say, let's take UC Berkeley. So I did a podcast, by the way, one of our advisors is postdoctorate from UC Berkeley. He clearly said right after his postdoctorate in data science, looking at Silicon Valley from UC Berkeley, he was thinking, I can't get a job. And so in other words, it's not his inability, as I was earlier saying. It's not about his IQ is low or he doesn't know how to do. It's about that not having the exposure towards application.
I wouldn't categorically say all teachers are not good. Honestly, the teachers that are good are the ones who are able to practically help you understand why is statistics important, as an example, right? So the good teachers, in my opinion, are the ones who are able to bridge that gap between concept and application. But absolutely, there is a huge chasm between, the academic nature of education and the practical nature of career. That bridge is still, there's a pretty big chasm.
A massive gap. Even, for instance, the ones who are trying, they're one-off cases. Second is, even if they want to try, they are not given the framework. They're not given the infrastructure to achieve that. For instance, there's a guy from Santa Barbara. He went back to Chennai, and he decided to settle back, and then he joined IIT Madras as assistant professor. He's the only guy in entire IIT Madras who ever worked before. And so he's saying that it's still not the norm. When they just hire people from academia. So again, my point is that with what it does is, if you heavily rely on the system, and if you don't get an opportunity to discover yourself, and you can get into that, or you can get blindsided into something that you don't want to do. For instance, you take your case, right? And then you came here, you realize, hey man, I want to do this. I want to define the products.
It had to come through trial and error. It had to come through trying. It had to come absolutely through practical experience, right?
You lost quality of life, right?
Oh,
by the time 5 to 7 years of like trial and error. Okay, let's try this, let's try that. And
a lot of waste of time.
So that is the crux of the problem, I think, in my opinion, which can be mitigated. I don't know if it can be eliminated 100%, because with the current infrastructure, because for our kids, they have everything in front of them, right? All they need is a laptop, for pretty much. And so if they want to learn something, they have a way to figure that out. Back then, so we had textbook and there was a company, right? There's nothing in between. So now you have many ways to figure out if you're really passionate about doing or learning something. There are multiple avenues to do. And so instead of, just like the way they were doing, instead of boxing them into this, and again, I'll go back to our kids' situation, right? This is AP course. Why I have to take this AP course? If you take that, you get into that college. That's pretty much it. So
that's it. No more questions.
No more questions. Even counselor says that, why are you asking too many questions? You want to do it or not? So, I've been in conversation. I'm pretty sure you're doing with Hari. So, they're kind of, forced into that, which happened to us. And then, so at the end of this whole saga of, with all due respect, education and academics, I call it, once you leave, you join a company now. So when you join a company, you're a rookie again, you are at zero, starting all over, right? So my question to you is, when you hire people, good schools, bad schools, average schools, coming from other parts of the world, right? On immigration. So you see a lot of flags. I'm pretty sure you might have figured out, man, this is the red flag. It's not going to work out, even though that guy has a tremendous GPA or a girl. Or otherwise, if somebody doesn't have any GPA or not so good in academics, but they showcase good skills in the interview process. How do you decide, hey, man, this is going to work out, or is it a trial and error and see 6 months, let's see, and then if it doesn't work, we'll figure out what to do with it.
No, that's the right place to sort of ask that next question of where have people crossed the chasm or not, and what does that look like? And, to your earlier point about the fact that it's a systemic problem, I do agree it's a systemic problem. I think we can augment with different ways, and, like what you're doing as an entrepreneur, trying to push education forward. I think those are minority things. The majority piece of the systemic change itself, trying to keep up with what it is children need before they're actually employable by the time they finish undergrad, or they finish even high school for that matter.
Right.
I feel like we have a long way to go. In terms of new hires, let's see. One of the first things I'd say is, I interview for both software engineers as well as for associate product managers. Good news. I think the industry has come around to understand that you don't need an MBA to be a product manager, which is great, right? Yeah. That's progress. So this concept of an APM, an associate PM, is something that is becoming fairly prevalent in a lot of big tech companies. I think your Facebook, your Google, your Salesforce, those are the ones who've kind of led the way to say this is actually possible. Even Microsoft has done a pretty good job of that. So if you do think you're actually interested in, or have taken some business courses, or you generally seem to have an idea that you don't want to code, but you want to be in tech, APM seems to be a pretty decent path. So typically when I'm looking for hires, I'll give you both the green light pieces and the yellow/red light pieces. On the green light piece, I mean, first of all, obviously you have no experience, right? Sure, you might have done some projects and you might have some bravado about the work that you've done so far. But for me, generally speaking, it is, do you have the ability to do the work? Not do you have the experience to do the work, obviously, right? So I do think that that ability piece is important even later in the career, but absolutely it's very important when it's your entry-level job. I look for hunger. Yeah. Right. That is probably one of the most important things. Are you able to see yourself in this role and articulate why you are a good fit for this role? Are you eager to, are you able to think on your feet and answer the questions that are being brought up rather than having blasé responses? Have you done research on the company, perhaps on the person who is interviewing you? Have you thought about where this company stands in its market? Is this company a leader? For example, I work on Tableau. Have you actually taken the time to go try out Tableau? You can install Tableau on your laptop. Have you tried it? Have you perhaps even studied what might be competitive products to Tableau? Do you have some questions for me that demonstrate, again, your interest and your excitement about this role, about this team, about this person that you're interviewing with, about this organization? Do you have questions in terms of culture? Do you see I want to see effort and initiative from the person and that hunger to say, I want to be here. Not, I'm all that, look at me, I'm so cool, I have this great GPA. That's one of the bigger turnoffs. It's still a yellow light because I'll still give them some grace. They're still very young in their careers. Red light is, I would probably say it's just a complete lack of connection to, or being able to even connect the dots for me as an interviewer as to why you think you belong there. Not being able to answer questions well, eye contact. I mean, some of those basic things, which I think you can, showing up on time. Sometimes I like to show up late just on purpose to see whether that rattles them or not. But I'm seeing how composed and how present are you in the moment. Some of those are generally applicable across all roles, not just product management roles. But then, again, actually the other piece also, which I liked about what you said earlier, was when you asked people, what did you learn? That also is a very favorite question of mine. I have to say 2 out of 10 people do well on that question, to be honest. Again, the distinction to be able to say not just what I studied, but what I actually learned. Did you learn problem solving? Did you learn, I don't know, time management? Did you learn critical thinking? Show me, right? If you're able to demonstrate that, then I think you have the intelligence to apply yourself here, even if you don't know Tableau or Python or whatever it is that I require you to know in this role. So I would say those things, and communication. I think honestly, communication generation after generation is actually going down the tube. I don't know that I think that is also an essential skill that has to be taught in school. My son does some, what is it called? Speech and debate in his spare time. So he has developed some of those abilities to get in front of an audience, answer a question, make a debate, etc. I think those should not be optional. They should actually be essential because, with, again, more phone being the way we define social now, that did not used to be how you and I defined social, right? Being social actually meant being in the midst of people. I feel like those are all some critical skills that are needed to land your first job.
Yeah, so I can add a little bit to it. So you put it correctly. I mean, this whole social media, I guess that's the word. I think it kind of degraded the social aspect of or destroyed the human connection, in my opinion. So I guess some of the things we are doing at Siliconvalley4u to address some of the things that you brought up. So I put it in tangible skills and intangible skills. Like I said earlier, like when I did computer science, they said if you know C programming, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna get a job. That's how they trained me over and over. And then I learned C. I guess I didn't really get any job in C programming when I started. I was doing something else. Point I'm trying to make is that till date, the concept is more or less same. Oh, if you know data science, if you have AI, ML, blah, blah, you get into job. The focus on the intangible skills, like how to get things done, how to solve a problem, And the other thing that you addressed, you mentioned is attitude. Having that right attitude to solve that problem. In order to solve this problem, I need these things, not other way around. That's how I did. I learned these thing, and then I don't know what to solve. I don't know. I mean, if a company says I have a coffee business, can you build a software? I don't know. I mean, you have to give me a spec. I don't know how coffee business works. So that was the problem, and that should not be the problem today. That's my opinion. If not coffee business of something of their interest, they should know everything. They should know the problem, what the solution is, and in order to solve the problem, in order to build a solution, you can use cloud, you can use Salesforce, or just don't use computer. If you think you can solve without using computer, it doesn't matter. Point is that you understand those are the things that unfortunately still lacking, and it's in some cases it's kind of getting worse, in my opinion. In US, it's okay. You're absolutely right. I deal with students in other parts of the world, in some of the African countries, Asian countries, and they have been taught literally, you do this, you do this, you do this. This is the package you get, and if these are the company names, you're doing well. Otherwise, you're not good. You're a failure. And and then they start comparing packages. If another company gives extra few dollars or whatever the local currency is, that they think that the company is giving them more respect than other company because they are offering a little bit more. But they don't understand that the work I might end up doing probably not help
Might
me.
be crappier. Yeah.
Yeah, crappy. Yeah. Some legacy thing they throw at me, and they'll give me so that I just stick around. And whereas this company might give. So in other words, if I join this company, for instance, Salesforce, right? Salesforce is going to do very well next, whatever, 20, 30 years. I mean, what are you going to be in 3 years or in 5 years, 10 years? And do you have courage to ask that question? So the question, you mentioned that, the questions they ask me, right? Then if they don't have, I didn't have guts to ask those questions, because if I ask, they think
Neither did I.
he's asking too many questions. Get rid of it. So even if you don't know what's going to be for you in next certain number of years, then why are you joining this company in this day and age I'm talking about? So I think that is the crux of the thing. What we are doing at Siliconvalley4u is we take these students from colleges and high schools, we bring these projects from the industry, and then have them executed while they're still in school to see all these problems firsthand.
Nice.
And get the exposure of, okay, this is how I have to communicate. If somebody asks, hey, what is the project status? This is how I should say. If I say this, they're going to get me off the project. And if you learn in the college at zero expense, if they let you off the project, in the real world, you lose the job.
There's going to be
There's
cost.
a huge cost.
Can I ask you a question there?
Sure.
Do you, I think as I hear you describe, right, what that level of readiness is that's expected, there's one point I want to make, and I don't know if it's tangential, we don't have to go there too far, but one of the things that I faced when I came to the US, I think Indians have a much better rap than a lot of other cultures because of the whole model minority myth. We were supposed to come here and do good work and keep our heads down right from the 60s and 70s. So we kind of did that, so it was fine. I do think minorities will lack confidence, whether it's women, if you combine women and racial minority, again, you're talking about African countries, you're talking about countries around the world where there's a language barrier. I do think it's important to also build up that confidence. And sometimes people joke with me, you have to channel your inner white male, right? It took me the longest time.
I know.
Like I would be in team meetings, I would see something absolutely ridiculous being discussed. I know why it's not a good idea because I've done the analysis in my head, but I would sit there and not say anything because I would think, wow, these are all white people. They must know more. I'm being very blunt, but that was definitely, or I'm a woman, I can't know as much as them, or I must be missing something. I spent far too long questioning myself. So I would I don't know if you also give that kind of sort of communication, coaching, building confidence, etc. But it's really
Absolutely.
important for people to feel like they can trust themselves and
Yes.
lead up and say, ask a question and don't feel stupid about it. Just the fact that you're asking a question is better than you not asking a question.
Absolutely. So the way we structured, I mean, that's a great point. As you said, coming from India, I come from similar background.
Yeah.
I see today exactly the guys in India through our program. So I'll give you one example. We create a WhatsApp group where they have to communicate. For instance, if they don't have Zoom link or whatever, they don't even ask. If they don't have guts to say in the group, hey, I don't have
Yep.
Zoom link. So
And that's
guy
okay.
missed the class, and then he subsequently that came to me that. So I was talking to them, and then they asked. So I didn't get the Zoom link. So then I was looking at the WhatsApp group. You never asked. How come? Oh, you are there, sir, in the WhatsApp group. How can I ask? So, so I guess I told him there is only one purpose for that WhatsApp group, just to give a Zoom link. And if you don't use that for that, regardless of who is in there, then do you know why that WhatsApp group is? So anyway, long story short, so what we are doing to sort of alleviate this problem is we have them write blogs. So if you look at our website, you go and all the students, especially from backgrounds who don't have, luxury of developing communication skills. And then, so we are making them create video shorts. So once they do certain small project or whatever, they create the video short and then they, they post that. So we do webinars every week, and then we have 400, 500 people joining the webinars. In every webinar, I make it a point to invite at least one guy from those backgrounds to demonstrate their projects. So for instance, we'll be doing a webinar to Bridgewater, New Jersey on October 2nd. So we have a lineup of students that are going to come and talk to all those guys. So they may not do an exceptional job, but they'll be better than what they were. And it's a process. That's another thing I like to, I want to bring it up here. I mentioned that to them. You are not going to change overnight. You are who you are, for whatever you have been doing for the last 18, 19, whatever number of years. Now you're not going to be this where, suddenly you become a CTO. It's not going to happen. It's a process. Even if you want to be Amazon engineer, what is Amazon engineer and who you are, and there's a delta, and you have to take that delta and practice every day so that you become engineer in Amazon, if that's your goal. And in order to do that, you have to do this every day or on a consistent basis. And if you do over a period of time, then you become that. We talked about that, right? Identity change, the book. So that process, this is where I'm talking about discovery process that takes years. It's overnight, you cannot change. I don't think many people can change. If there are very few, maybe they're out of luck or whatever you call it. But so in order for somebody to be that's why we take these programs to colleges and high schools, because they have to start then and then just do slowly over a period of time. And by the time you finish your academics, whatever they are, and you are ready, we call it industry ready, you are ready. I'll tell you right now, some of our interns that have been teaching for years, they would have taught 2,000 to 5,000 students. I'll tell you, right, I whenever we have this, some kind of all hands type thing, I always tell them, when they walk into the group tomorrow, let's say Akshay or anybody, the guys who have been teaching this over and over, he teaches 3 times a week. So tomorrow when they are in front of the people, and even if they're ready or otherwise, it's just in their DNA. They just walk in and they do their thing. And if they don't know, hey, I'm not ready for this, and they can confidently say and get up.
Yeah.
I was freaking out. And I know there's a bunch of students here in this education system. They are very confident, but the ability to satisfy the customer in that 1 hour in the real time, I call it mentorship. The message is everybody has to mentor someone. And also you have to be mentored by someone. It's a pipe that you have to, so you need to find a mentor. You also have to mentor a few people. So that is one of our internships. That's the first item in the roadmap. Let's say if somebody comes to me and say, I know, Tableau or Salesforce, first teach this guy. If that guy says he likes you, you know it. If he says he doesn't like you or he doesn't understand, figure that out. Until you figure that out, it doesn't matter how good you are. So that's the bottom line. I'll give you another cohort if you want. If all the cohorts are saying wrong, I mean, not so good, and let's say you have exceptional credentials, it doesn't matter. There's nothing I can do. Yeah. You got to solve that. You make sure that you can serve them. So I think bunch of our interns, they excelled and they're doing very well. One example I'll give, and then we'll go to the next question. One of our guys joined Amazon. He was our intern. He did his undergrad from University of some schools, SMU in Texas. I forgot the full form. So he joined Amazon a month ago. So I did a podcast with him, so you can see. He clearly said, I got a call from Amazon because I had this certificate, but none of the courses I did in my college helped me with the interview. That's exactly Amazon, they would have called otherwise also, but they called because these college.
Would Amazon have called him without an undergraduate degree?
They wouldn't have called. That's what he thinks. The reason being, well, in this particular case, they called to the campus interview. But all the work he was doing during COVID, all the freelancing work, the job he got is UX UI. The degree has nothing to do with UX UI. Very simple. And so his point is, why you were pushing through the interview. I mean, the degree, why when you knew that this is the case, because his parents, stand. So, basically, you are the co-chair of the board of the PDX Women in Tech, right? So can you talk a little bit more about it? And I know you mentioned earlier that, women turn out to be or happen to be a minority for a long time. I don't know why. It baffles me, though, by the way. This industry is more fit for women than men.
Answers why, but
no, I think this industry is more fit for women than men because women have patience and they can organize their thoughts and the whole 9 yards. Guys, many young guys, they can't sit at one place. Somehow it turned out opposite. Anyway, so what's your, just talk about your efforts there, and then and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, to this day, when they run the annual reports to take a look at how men and women are paid vis-a-vis one another, that continues to be a disparity. For the white woman, it's 79 cents to the dollar. Or for Asian women, I think it's almost, actually for Indian women, it's maybe the same as white men or pretty close. The moment you get down to like, Black women or Hispanic women or Native American women, it gets down to like 57, 58 cents to the dollar. That disparity, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about certain inherent skills that between nature and nurture women are bringing to the table, which would make them really great at the tech industry. I agree with you. But obviously it's a huge, there are systemic inequalities, right from school, you start to see those imprints as to where and how, it's not cool for a girl to like STEM, right? She's supposed to go over there. The boys are supposed to go over there. I mean, the entitlement starts in the classroom. The inability to ask questions or not having the confidence starts in the classroom. Even if it's not that inherently it's built to you by the system, and then over time that just builds up. You don't have enough women going into STEM professions as much as you'd like. I think there are a few universities in the country where women go to school more for STEM professions than men. I think UW is one of those schools where your son went to, right? And then you get into the industry itself, and then you've got those sort of systemic inequalities internally in the roles, which everybody is trying to work and get better at, but it's that entire pipeline that's a problem, right? It's all the way through, and plus there are the systemic issues as well. So PDXWIT is basically an organization that's focused. It started out with the women in tech concept because it was started by a white woman. The whole point was her own inequitable career experience in the workplace. And so she started it with that. And then they expanded the mission to when they realized, oh, wow, the white woman's problem is just at the tip of the spear. There are those inequities actually get a lot worse when you combine intersectionality, as they call it, right? Let's say a person is on the spectrum as it relates to sexual orientation and gender, and race and color. When you put all of those ands together, you start to experience pretty significant inequities in the workplace, and it hurts you in different ways. Portland is pretty forward in that respect, that there's a lot of acknowledgement and recognition that you live your life the way you want, you bring yourself as you are to work, and you should be able to learn those skills and grow. So PDXWIT does a lot across that pipeline. We do a lot of scholarships for underrepresented minorities who are looking to get tech internships or get tech education. We support the local Girls Who Code and a lot of the coding programs for minorities. We raise money through sponsor organizations such as your Puppets and your Amazons of the world who are locally based here in Portland. And we then pump that money back into the organization, into the community from the standpoint of bringing up more and more people into tech. We run a very neutral job board. So we go tell the sponsors as well, it's not enough if you just say, I support DEI. You actually have to put your money where your mouth is as it relates to you truly building an equitable workplace. I launched a speakers bureau for them where we actually go and give talks inside the organization to really make people sit in that uncomfortable space of, you might say all the things you want, but look around, you're 90+% white. How are you going to change that equation? And slowly try to change that dialogue over time. So yeah, I was initially volunteering and then I joined the board about a couple of years ago.
Fantastic. So I just wanted to put it out there. If you think if we can be of some help, we'll be happy to.
Thank you. I'll reach out to them too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So for instance, I was, we are working with UT Dallas right now. A bunch of projects are being executed by them. Just like this, I joined a Zoom call and to talk to them. Very first call and very last call, I talked to them. I'm not kidding. I was in some kind of girls in tech club. All are women. I never seen before. I was like, did I get into the wrong meeting or what? So then I introduced myself, and so they said, yes, this is the same batch. So I told them, I really appreciate it because I never seen something like all are women and about 8 or 10 or something like that. But that was the only instance in the last 5-6 years, and there in India, there is some interesting things that are happening. There are women's colleges for tech. And only girls are allowed in those colleges, obviously. And so I went to one of those colleges. It's called Narayanamma College. But the problem is, they are in third year and they have all kinds of degrees, AI, ML, IT, CS, yada, yada. So my company name is Siliconvalley4u. I asked them, do you know where Silicon Valley is? None of them know. And so never heard Silicon Valley. I told them, it's nothing important as far as your course go. You still get the marks without knowing Silicon Valley. But you should know you're going to be in this tech industry. You should Google it. And so I asked them, are you internet? Have you ever come across a word Silicon Valley? Oh, we are all on Instagram. Okay, so see, and then Instagram, you never seen word Silicon Valley? Apparently not. They're heavily into movies, I guess. Speaking of social media, I guess it's not really helping. And somehow they are in tech degrees. They're going to finish in a year or so. I think these are the shortcomings, in my humble opinion, between the system and the reality of the world. And as you said, some of the other, what do you call them? Discrimination, for the lack of a better term, in terms of equality. Yeah, so they're not paying enough salaries and that kind of thing. That's the next level of what I do with these boys and girls at this point of time. Right now, I'm telling them, we pay same everybody. We don't have any. In fact, I love to hire more women, more girls. In fact, when I see them, I talk to them and try to get them on board more so than boys. And they do excellent job. That's the reason I kept bringing it up. I mean, a lot of interns of girls have tremendous feedback from customers than boys. I'm not saying boys are not good, but they do good job. But most of the women do very well, very good job. That's what, at least in our program.
Nice.
Yeah. So my take of connecting these schools, regardless of what, for instance, Ananya is doing, has done a different, or she's interested in different discipline. And a lot of people, whether you choose tech or not as your primary profession, I'm preaching all the parents and students that have the tech in your pocket.
Yep.
You don't have to do coding. It's not like you have to sit and do a Java program. I'm not saying that. However, understand what AI is, what ML is, what is blockchain, crypto, all these things, so that you can bring that into your discipline, which is going to happen whether you do it or not. Tech is going to be there regardless of what you choose to do. And so if you start now, again, it's a process. And if you learn the ability to have that communication, and one of the biggest headaches for the non-IT folks about IT is this whole jargon of words, like just crazy, right? Some blah, blah term puppet, right? It throws you off immediately. And you think puppet means, it's completely, so you go somewhere else. So point is that, have that ability to follow and have the conversation with the tech guy, and so that when it matters, you can bring in those guys to help you out, or you can do it yourself if you really have time and interest. So what's your take on that? The summary of what I'm trying to say is that tech gives you ability to connect a student to real world.
Mm-hmm.
Another example I'll give, I was at a college. I asked the question to everybody: a square plus b square equals c square. We all learned. I learned 10 times, sixth class to BTech first year. Every time I wrote the exam, I got some score, I got through all that. But I asked them, do you know where it gets used? Nobody knows. And everybody said triangle. Okay. Yeah, triangle is the one I wrote in the exam. Yes, I passed the exam. I told them, I also don't know. Don't worry about it. I still don't know. I'll never know. I don't want to know anymore. I'm tired and I'm no longer interested in that. I guess the point I'm trying to make is if there is a way to they bring their math skills or medicine, in the case of Ananya, some other passion they have, they can glue that with the tech in some fashion, and they don't have to code again. Create something that increases your passion and drive to solve problems. So you want to talk more, a little bit more, because you come from productization side of things.
Yeah, I think that is still not within reach for a lot of people, because there is still, at least as far as I can see, there's still a pretty big barrier to connecting that gap between taking something practical, such as, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to just make up a problem, right? Let's say a whole bunch of people got pets, dogs or cats, during COVID because they were at home, they were alone, they were feeling stuck. And then, the pandemic sort of comes to an end. They're all supposed to go back to the office. There are a whole bunch of pets that don't have a home during the day. And let's say there's a problem. I'm just making something up, right?
Yeah.
You have to start with a problem. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of times that, youngsters, quite honestly, I see it in my PMs on my team as well, who don't do a very good job of, because they munge the problem and the solution. We could build this, we could build that. No, first frame the problem, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to articulate a very unique problem space that you're passionate about. I picked up something that I had read about recently, or just came to my mind. But for my, young teenager at home, it may be a different issue, right? He's trying to, let's say he's trying to I don't know, what's the latest thing that he's been worried about? Yeah, he's been trying to connect a bunch of kids in the community to teach them, good speaking skills, whether you go to speech and debate or not. He's passionate about communication. How do you go solve that problem? How do you, first of all, understand who your audience is, who your customer is, what problems they have, what's not being solved as a consequence of that? And then you can start to think about, where are there applications that you can build? Do you start with an app? What does that look like? What is that experience going to be, etc.? And I think that connection between practicality and coding, I would say at the high school level, is still pretty challenging.
Yeah.
I don't know that my son has really broken that barrier. He's taken AP Comp Sci this year. So hopefully we'll see if he's able to actually, I'm sure he's going to learn and understand that it's not a big deal. But he did some stuff on Scratch in the past and such, but I don't know that that is very accessible to a lot of people. Yeah. At Oregon State, which is our local university, I do a lot of mentoring for their business program. So every couple of quarters, I get invited to come and judge their practical work. They take very practical local problems. One of them was a very interesting one where the guy wanted to know which cafeteria had the best food every day of the week. Or better yet, where free food was being served on campus, because all young students want free food. So he built an app to go solve that problem, right? Geolocation, you have to have people submitting data, you have to have people accessing data, you need to know when the food is run out, you need to know how far you are from it, optimize which one to go to, where tacos are great. Like, he had to figure the whole thing out. And I was just really amazed that he took a practical problem and he solved it. Yeah. It was, grad students wanting free food. I think at the high school level, it's still pretty challenging, but the basic set of computer skills, instead of making that an optional AP class, if they actually made that a basic class, I think that would go a long way in the public school system to get people to start thinking about how to use software to solve real world problems.
Yeah, I agree.
So answering the question, but that's sort of where I see some barriers.
Yeah. I think so. I see a little bit more, right? For instance, all these schools, just like math, they teach what? They never teach how and why. I mean, I'm being honest. It's nothing to be critical about. Second thing is, even if AP Computer Science, I hear that in my humble opinion, it's a myth, because there are two problems there. One is that they structured AP Computer Science Java programming as a exam. Java programming is not an exam. Exam is if you build an application and whatever it is, then you pass the exam. It should not be a written test where they write for loop and all.
Java is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then you write for loops and whatnot, and you pass the exam and you think you know Java programming, but apparently, obviously you don't, because it's not your fault and you never used it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the third problem is, I stated earlier, with all due respect, who is teaching? Some math teacher learned Java. And can they hire a software developer? No. Does software developer leave company and work for high school already? No. And that gap is going to be there for good. It's never going to be solved. And no matter what the school is. Maybe there are 1-2 schools where the guy went and worked. After a few years, he'll be out of date also. So bottom line is that ability to turn that into why and how is the effort we are trying to put in with high school students onwards. And then the last part you said, which is very, very important, morning to evening, there are tons of problems. I'll tell you, recently I was ER. This maybe you may want to talk to Ananya. I was in ER very first time in my life. I went with my friend, and so, we had some situation which is not super critical where we had to call ambulance, and it's not, not so
not serious
not serious that we can just go whenever. So first of all, you can't submit your his card and whatnot through any device. So you have to go and stand in the line. This is ER. You have to stand in the line. The worst part is there are people in the wheelchair standing in the line to submit their medical cards. Okay. And the only people who can directly go through is you have to come to the ambulance. The person is telling you, if you want to go directly, call ambulance. And so
that's atrocious.
we didn't know that we had to call them. So anyway, so the long story, we go there. That day it was raining too. And then we go there and we sit there, right? We were there for 2 hours. It's raining outside. It's such a small room. People are coughing. I'm the only healthy guy. I think I'm standing there. I didn't know where to stand. If I sit there and these guys are coughing at me, and if I can't go, I felt like I'm in a third world country. This is Silicon Valley.
Don't even get me started with our medical system. It's absolutely atrocious. Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, my point is there are tons of, I know there are regulatory crap, all that, there's that, but somebody like Hari, somebody like Ananya, somebody can say, you know what, this is what we need, this needs to be done, at least whether they like it, some of these, facilities, whether they accept or not. I think there are tons of problems. That's the point I'm trying to make. There are millions of problems.
Unsolved.
And we are just, we are used to fitting in. So you get up in the morning, you fit into so many things that we don't like.
Correct.
Until you go to bed. So there are some people, they after they go to bed also, they're fitting into things that they don't like, insomnia, all that. So point is that, as you said, right, some of these high school students, it's a process. It's not like we are expecting them to solve today, but if they don't start thinking on those lines, they get caught up in the stereotypes and then they lose time, just like you and I did. So that's the message, the crux of this.
I agree with you. And I think I agree with you that it's not just learning AP computer science or whatever computer science. It's absolutely the application. I also would say that fundamentally, the difference between what I learned at home from my father and my mother versus what I learned in school, and honestly, not a lot has changed between my time back in India in the 80s to now here. Here, still, they are taught largely to regurgitate information. I do think schools need to do a better job of the practical application, the understanding of the why. But also, I think teachers and schools need to do a better job of helping people think. I don't think they're helping children think for themselves, right? If you teach that critical thinking ability in school, which I think absolutely is possible, and it's happening in small pockets, then that same person is going to go out in the world and is going to have a more critical thinking lens to everything that they do. And when they show up in the interviews, they're going to be a little bit more present and connected with what it is they're trying to accomplish. Besides, of course, I think there's another thing that you cannot teach people, but everybody, not only for getting into tech careers, but really being successful. Even now, I can say this very confidently, that the people who are lifelong learners are the ones who are truly successful at the end of the day. Right. And it doesn't have to be financial success, right? It doesn't have to be, it can be more satisfying in different other ways. It doesn't have to be financial or, career level VP or whatever.
Correct.
But the ones who are learners and are open to learning are the ones, I think, at the end of the day, who are going to continue to find joy and solve new problems.
I think the summary is, you put it correctly. So the continuous learning. So in other words, learning is not limited to schools. And that's number one. So you can learn regardless. Second is the current system with, if we want to be very politically right, the current system can be a option for this given student. If student is under challenged or over challenged, system should provide more options. So let's say if Ananya wanted to do something else, system should allow them, rather than saying that, okay, you are one of them, just go and do it. I don't know, you figure it out after the school. Otherwise, go somewhere else. That should not be the case. And same with some folks that are, there's some kids think that the whole thing is boring and it's very under challenging, and they, for whatever reason, they think they can do better, whatever it is, right? So system is a responsibility. It's not that system, it's a responsibility to give option to these kids, because they are trying to figure out what they want and they are trying to figure out what works for them. You cannot force them into something they don't like. And then after that, you just leave them like a fish out of pond. You figure it out. It's no longer my responsibility. I think that's how it is right now. So with that, I'm going to go to the last fun question generally asked. The piece of technology that you think you want that doesn't exist.
Oh boy, there are so many.
You can use fantasy ones too. So somebody said, I want to.
I'll tell you the bane of my existence. This is not going to be very exciting, maybe for a lot of your students, but every evening I get asked the question, what's for dinner? If somebody can solve, and don't tell me I can get Blue Apron, they will send me boxes. There's a lot of wastage that goes into that. It's not globally sustainable. I have a bunch of groceries in the house. It's not a problem. Nobody is going to starve in this house. But I don't want to ask that question. I think it's an absolutely good AI ML problem.
Correct.
We are very predictable people.
Yes.
There are only 3 people in this house.
There are patterns already established.
There are patterns established week after week after freaking week. If some software could figure this out, connect the dots with the groceries I have in the house, and propose a meal, I will make it. I don't have a problem. Somebody else will make it also. Like I have 2 competent people who can also make meals. They just want to know what to make, and somehow it's only my problem to solve it. And if you can solve it,
I think we can solve it.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. I mean, in fact, we can do it. In fact, we have a chip. We can work with the company called Sintient. They are in Geo. So their chipset is low power. This is what they do. They can take one word. For instance, in Geo, I want to go to voicemail. That's all they do. And in other components, for instance, you can ask, what is the color? So in your case, what's for dinner? We can build a device that will answer that question, and based on.
I'm here when you want to write down the specs and the acceptance criteria. I'm ready.
No, I'm not kidding. I mean, we might consider doing it, if not with the device, but just a software piece. We can easily do it, and we have a lot of expertise in ML and AI right now. And this is, in my humble opinion, is relatively easy. Only thing that we may not be able to do it quickly is the voice portion of it. But I mean, to add the voice portion, then we need chipsets and the whole device and the whole.
No, I can read. It's fine.
No, I'm not joking. We'll do it. I'm that serious.
All right.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great idea.
I'm sure a lot of most of the time, it's not all the time, this burden falls on mothers, not fathers. So if you can solve this problem, particularly for people who, I mean, I don't define myself as a cook, and that's not the definition of my existence. I would rather do other things, but it would be great. Anyways, jokes aside, I think what you're doing with this organization is really noble. I hope there are other ways I can support, my family can support. I think reducing that barrier of technology access and education will make the world a better place. Absolutely. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. Again, so we do series of podcasts. Maybe we'll do one more in the near future. I know you're very busy, but we take maybe a different topic and then dive into it.
Great.
Yeah, so let us know if you think we can be of help for that PDX women in tech, and we'll do it.
I'll follow up.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Guru. Thank you.